Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Kageyama, and I'd like to welcome everyone here to Be Your Own Hero. I'm a stage 4 prostate, bone, and lung cancer patient. Been dealing with cancer since 2021, doing very well. And there's just so many great things going on here in Texas, and I'm just happy to be here. And I'm happy to get to start getting to know people in the area. And as time goes on, we'll give you updates as to what's happening here with our new life in Texas. But I'm so excited to be here today with somebody very, very special. And I'd like to introduce her to you right now. And her name is Cinde Dolphin. Cinde, please introduce yourself. And I, she thought this was the virtual background with the dolphin was in honor of her, but I was just flipping through. I said, "Hey, that looks good," and so it was just by pure accident. And so, Cinde, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Mark, for having me. I'm honored to be talking to you because your story is pretty impactful. And to see you thriving is really encouraging. And I'm delighted I can be a part of it.
Oh, thank you so much. Let's have you talk a little bit about what you do real briefly, and then we'll start talking about how your cancer journey started.
Okay. So I've had a pretty dynamic career. I was doing marketing for large adult beverage businesses and getting to travel and attend events, Super Bowl, things like that. It was a
Wow.
pretty exciting career to have, not even thinking I'd ever do anything other than that because why? It was so fun, right? But in 1999, I was diagnosed with a tumor in my lung, and it was a little bit larger than what they anticipated. So they end up doing a lobectomy, and I had one lung almost entirely removed.
Wow.
And it was, yeah, it was kind of a shell shock situation. I had been living this great life, and to all of a sudden have such a kind of crazy, exotic cancer diagnosis took me by surprise. But fortunately, I recovered from that and went on to do a lot of athletic things. It was wonderful that I could still do kind of extreme skiing and rock climbing, living a lifestyle that was, what really made me happy. And so I continued to do marketing in this world of adult beverages. And then I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and that took me by surprise because I thought I'd paid my dues. I'd already had a cancer, come through it, and now here I was with breast cancer, and I found it myself. So I'm really happy, and I want to say right away that everyone, but mostly women, need to be doing self exams, and that's how I found mine. And so that was addressed with a lumpectomy and chemo and radiation. And then 7 years later, in the same breast, we found some really unusual tissue in there. So we went back in, and it was breast cancer, completely different, but breast cancer again. And then 7 years later, we found some more inconsistencies, and it was another diagnosis of breast cancer. So four, but
When was the latest?
it was in 2015, so about 8 years ago. And knock on wood, I'm here, like you, fortunate to have come through it and feel like I have kind of a debt to the world, to the universe for having come through it. So I've made my second career something entirely different, and it's incredibly fulfilling. And it was something I would have never guessed I would have been involved with, but I'm really happy to be here now.
Wow, wow, wow. Let's let's talk about that. I'm so excited to hear about that.
Well, the last cancer, breast cancer, I had to make the hard decision of having a mastectomy. And, now I've lost a lung and a breast cancer. And I was like, gee, this is really more than I wanted cancer to have from me. I wanted to be that fun loving, active person that I was before I ever had cancer. But I started thinking about it as an opportunity. And during all of the surgeries that I had gone through, there was always this really uncomfortable part of recovery where I had to have these JP drains for about 3 to 4 weeks after surgery. And if you're not familiar with them, they're about the size of a lemon and they're attached to a drain line. And the surgeon inserts that drain line in the surgical area before they put the final sutures in. And it is used to withdraw any kind of fluid that would be in that surgical area that could cause complications or infections. So the bulb is I don't know, about, a size of a hand. It's collapsible and there's a little cap on it. So when you put the cap on the bulb, it works off of suction and it slowly suctions the fluid out of the surgical area. So usually there's between 2 and 4 of these that are put in by the surgeon at the very end of the surgery, and then you have to deal with these drains. So it was kind of ironic that here are surgeons who are so brilliant, and I can't give enough credit to surgeons, but they had no experience of what happens after the surgery. So they wheel you into recovery, and they don't know that after you're coming out of anesthesia, you've got these really awkward drains attached to you. And the first time, I wasn't even informed there would be anything like that. And I had thought that they had taken more of my body than what was just originally taken, the lung. And I assumed it was a life support system. It's not that. It's certainly not that traumatic, but it's also very upsetting to look and think about, how are you going to deal with this? They typically give patients a safety pin for each one of the drains and tell you to pin them to your hospital gown. So one, it's very unattractive because it's full of mucus and blood clots and nobody wants to look at them. But then it's apparent that when you go to change clothes or bathe, there's nothing to pin them to. So they're just dangling off of your body to these sutures that it makes it painful and it can easily tear from the suture. So the drains are heavy with fluid. You have to empty them 2 or 3 times during the day because they frankly fill up and they become very heavy. So my last surgery, I thought, I'm going to go in a little bit smarter than the first time and bring like a Home Depot apron with me so that those drains would go into the pockets of the apron and wouldn't have to be attached with safety pins. And when I did that, my nursing crew thought it was absolutely brilliant. They said, this is what we need to have for all patients who have these drains, these surgical drains. So they sent me home with the mission of coming up with a solution. And it was kind of a fun discovery process. I included family members. We went to the dollar store and we purchased those laundry bags that you use to wash fine lingerie and stuff, and just started constructing them and reconstructing them into something that could safely hold those drains, but be worn without having safety pins. So we created an apron. It's essentially an apron with a zipper closure, and it holds up to 4 drains. You can put the drain lines in there and then zip it closed. And then because it's out of mesh, it absolutely can go in the shower or the bathtub with you. So that patient now has regained some dignity. They don't feel like they're at the mercy of these really awkward drains that are attached to them. And it increases patients' mobility. They're more likely to get up, get out of bed, go for short walks. And so it was kind of an exciting discovery that it was simple, but it was really going to answer the issue. And I was quite fortunate that my plastic surgeon was willing to kind of clinically test it. I wouldn't call it a clinical test, but offered it up as a prototype to patients that came through his clinic. And the patients all came back with really positive feedback. And we felt like we really had something that could help. And so we found a commercial manufacturer, started contacting hospitals, and it's been a warming, beautiful journey to find that I'm really helping people get through what can be a terrible recovery time. And, you know, we have enough on our mind and on our heart when we're recovering from surgery. We don't need to have anything else to annoy us or slow us down. So it's called the Kili Medical Drain Carrier, and it's used for a lot of surgeries, not just cancer surgeries, but drains are used for bariatric surgery,
Can I
cardiac.
pause you right there?
Uh-huh.
How do you spell Kili?
Kili, and then medical drain carriers. So
Okay.
it is named after Kilimanjaro. So another part of the story is after recovering from my final surgery, I went to Africa and lived there for 3 months. And it was at the base of Kilimanjaro. And I worked with women in microloan groups. And in order to honor those women, I decided to take what the locals call Kilimanjaro as Kili, use that as the name for the medical drain carrier. So it's called Kili Medical Drain Carrier, and now it's used in hospitals for a number of surgeries. And I've gotten such amazing stories from people who say, honestly, it made all the difference during my recovery. So that's the story. It was kind of a fun way to get there.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Thank you for doing that. That's anything to make this journey better, I'm all for it. And that is uh, absolutely fantastic. Do you have other products with your company?
No, that's the only, we're one trick pony, but I have become somewhat vocal, being a patient advocate of talking to the medical industry about incorporating patients in the R&D process. So as I mentioned before, surgeons didn't know that these drains were such a inconvenience, and actually there are people who say it's worse than chemo, and you and I know that there's nothing worse than chemo. But the drains can become so annoying that it really interrupts your whole life. And so I feel that it is part of my job not only to come up with a Kili medical drain carrier, but be an advocate in the community talking about working with patients to find out what needs are not being met. So the big medical supply companies have these extensive research and development centers, but they're not talking to patients. They're coming up with high tech, high cost items, and nobody is coming to the patient and saying, what could we do to make it a little easier on you? So it's kind of not only do I have the product, but I also have this kind of I don't know, platform, so I can talk to the medical industry about consulting patients for what needs are not being met right now.
Wow, that is absolutely phenomenal. I love that. Anything that can help people, I'm all for it. And you know, if you could find a doctor who'd be willing to do the procedures instead of us as patients, that would be even better. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot that we'd like to have happen, but we have to take it one day at a time, one
Right.
step at a time. What you're doing with your podcast is taking people a little bit further into their journey, helping them get through it. There's so many things that we can do to help, and this is just one thing, but what you're doing is also very important. There's many people out there. There was a young girl, 11 years old, who was going into the room to get her chemo, and she felt very awkward because she was the only young person in there. So she invented an infusion pole that went on a backpack so she could walk into the area where pediatrics was and be with people her age. So it seems like such a simple thing, but it's really us coming up with these ideas that can make it better. So I encourage people to think about how they can come up with something, become an inventor. I mean, I never thought I would be an inventor. I was having a wild time going to events, never thought I'd eventually become an inventor and have a patent. But what a journey it's really been.
Wow. I'm so excited for you, and I'm so excited for the patients that have the opportunity to use your product. It's just so great. So let's talk more about your journey as a patient, and what was your mindset as far as having the recurrences of your cancer? Each succeeding time, did you have more confidence, or what was involved in that process?
I have to say, you go high and low, of course, but the second diagnosis or the second breast cancer diagnosis was probably the hardest for me. I really didn't think I would have another recurrence. And it broke my heart when I found out that once again I was doing this process. And I have to say, I relied heavily on friends and business associates to get me through what was a pretty dark time in my life. And then by the time I'd gotten my third diagnosis of breast cancer, I was kind of into it by then. I was like, okay, this is it. I'm going to get a mastectomy. I'm not going to have this come back ever again. And so I threw a bye-bye booby party, and I told people to bring ice cream, and we stocked my freezers. So I had ice cream for like 6 months after I had my surgery. I kind of decided to celebrate it and to give it energy and then take that energy away once it was removed. So it was interesting that the second and the third breast cancers were totally different. One was very difficult, and one I just decided to get it over with and get through it and move on. So it's going to be different for everyone. It's such a personal journey, and such I try not to tell anybody what I expect them to deal with, because I think each person has their own solutions, their own mindfulness that they're going to use to get through the diagnosis. So that's simply how I did it, but I would hope everyone would find their own journey.
Oh, absolutely. And my approach is I just share what I've done, but I don't expect anybody to do what I've done, or put parameters on people or expectations, because a cancer journey is an individual journey and people need to make it their own. And so many people, give it up to their doctors and say, hey doc, whatever you say, and they need to go a step farther and realize that uh, you need to put yourself and your personality into your journey in order to make it yours.
Couldn't agree more. And I think you're an excellent example of having decided to take the reins and listen to yourself as well as listening to your medical team.
Yes, absolutely, because it's so important, because in the eyes of the doctor, in the eyes of your oncologist, you are a number until you are willing to step up and say, hey, I'm a person, and I want to be treated like a person as an individual. So that's what is so important in any cancer journey, or any health journey for that matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter. But I just love what you did. I absolutely love it. And
Thank you.
my hat's off to you. That is so absolutely fantastic. Um, so what are your thoughts moving forward about what you're going to be doing with your company? Are you going to expand it? Are you going to look for other things, other areas to um, find solutions for? Or what's your thought process there?
Well, we're very excited. We just received an order from Romania, so we're starting to expand into the EU. apparently there is nothing like this over in the EU, and they're quite excited about the opportunities. So for one thing, we're growing into an international exporter. That's kind of exciting.
Wow.
And then part of the this is really sweet, but when I went to Africa and I worked with the women in the microloan groups, I became very close, and we took my Kili Medical Drain Carrier and took a pattern of it, and the women started cutting out the pattern out of their locally made fabrics, which are beautiful, vibrant, colorful fabrics, and sewing them into aprons. And they have created their own small business where they make these beautiful aprons, and I import them here and sell them in gift shops. So we're doing something in addition to helping people through a diagnosis. We're also giving opportunities for women in Africa to buy farming supplies, to pay for school fees, getting health care for their family. So it's not a traditional expansion, but it's a really wonderful way to know that the world is getting smaller and we're getting closer. And these women and I have remained very good friends, and I'm thrilled to say I'll go back and visit them later next year.
What prompted you to go to Africa?
Well, after I survived cancer 4 times, I felt like I need to do something because I owe a debt here. I'm like a very fortunate person. And I wanted to join the Peace Corps, but they didn't want me. They said, you don't have skills that we can use. So I went and found an organization that has like 8 different geographies that you can go to. And the one I wanted to go to was in Tanzania, and it was at the base of Kilimanjaro. And so I lived there for 3 months and worked with these women. They spoke only Swahili. I speak only English, but it was beautiful. We just learned to communicate, and their kids were so cute. They could do the translations, and we made this beautiful business, and they're so proud of themselves. And that's worth $1 billion, seeing how they feel empowered by having their own small business.
Wow, that's exciting. I love the fact that you've had a cancer journey and you've had your own situation, but you've made something of it, and you're helping people and you're helping patients. My hat's off to you. I really, really commend you. That is beautiful. And so many people talk about it, but so few people act on it, and you acted on it. So that's absolutely fantastic.
Well, same to you, Mark. You've acted on your diagnoses and come up with this wonderful platform. So hats off to you also.
Oh, I lost you there for a second.
Oh, okay. I'm still here. Are you?
Yes, I am. I was messing with something that I shouldn't have been.
Oh.
Cindy, so what would you like to leave with our audience as a final thought?
Um, so one of the most wonderful things that I came through with is a group of people who told me about human-centered design. So there was in 1978, the Nobel Peace Prize winner was a gentleman named Dr. Herbert A. Simon. And he said the best possible discoveries come from a place of empathy. So if people can empathize and start thinking about what it's like to be either a survivor or a caregiver or a medical person, and develop ways to complete that process and come up with ways that we can make life easier for folks. That's what I'd like to leave, is just people starting to think about a place of empathy as they're going through their everyday life.
That's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And I have a question that I've been asking people recently. I used to give my own answer all the time, but it's more exciting to hear other people's version of this question. So the question is how would you make the world a better place?
Well, my first answer would be find a cure for cancer. And then second of all would be that we could um, understand how vulnerable a person is during any kind of health crisis. And sometimes you don't need to do anything, you just need to be there. So I guess having the heart to listen to people when they're not feeling well and sticking with them. And it doesn't mean you have to go above and beyond, but just be close to them and let them know that you're there. And I think that would be a good thing for the world to have more patience with patients.
I love that. I really love that. Yeah, you know what? I I've been asking that of guests, um, and all the answers are different, and I love that. It's so great because we live in such a divisive world, and there's so much negativity. But if we all come together and help each other and love each other and do what we can for our fellow man, that's the way the world is going to get better. The world is not going to get better by itself. I mean, we have to be the ones, one, even if it's one by one, do what we can to help this world get better because it really needs it right now. There's just so much going on, and but if we one by one start creating a movement and make it one, make it two, and get multiples, 10, 50, 100. That's how we can make this world become a better place, the place that we want it to be. And that's uh I think the way it should be. But
Well said. Well said. Absolutely.
Cindy, thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing your journey and sharing about your company and continued success, because your success means the patients are successful. So that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you once again for joining us. And
Thank you, Mark.
I'd like to thank everyone for joining us here at To Be Your Own Hero. Have a great week. Be blessed. And we will see you next week on To Be Your Own Hero. Thank you very much.